Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at some of the top NFL head coach candidates for the Silver and Black in 2025. If you haven't watched any of the shows that I've made all week, it's this. I wanted Antonio Pierce to work out as a head coach, and if AP keeps doing exactly what he has done all season long, we got to be able to face the facts, and I hate to say it, but the Raiders have to move on from Antonio Pierce because it's clear as day that he is in way over his head. The Raiders have no identity right now, and they are one of the worst football teams in the National Football League. If the Raiders finish with the top 5 pick, you got to do a business decision, and you got to consider moving on from AP and going out and getting a candidate. Because I know this, if you keep Antonio Pierce as your head coach, I don't know if you're going to attract some of the top OC candidates, because I know this, if I was a top OC candidate, I don't know if I'd want to play with Antonio Pierce right now. So here's your opportunity to be honest with me. And I know that depending on when you watch this video, it's Halloween or not, let's get a little bit spooky. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which is a little bit earlier than what I usually hit you with, but it's the most important question that I think Raider fans can answer this season. Do you want AP back next season? Give me a yes. Give me a no. My answer after this YouTube ad break. If the Raiders can get a better head coach, you got to do it, Mark Davis. It's simply just a business decision. Those are Antonio Pierce's words, not mine. If AP can say business decision, I think the Raiders can too, and it's going to be tough for Mark to cut bait. But the only way that you're going to get this team going on the right path is going out and getting a franchise quarterback, and I do not trust Antonio Pierce, and I do not trust the regime that AP has created to go get us a franchise quarterback. And if we have a top 5 pick, if we have all that salary cap space, if we have all that draft capital, we're going to be able to attract some of the top head coaches, which is exactly what we need to do. So coming up here on the show, let's get into the top 5 head coach candidates for the Raiders, and I'm also going to tell you which quarterback I would pair with these coaches. I'll also say this, if you're a good head coach, you're going to put your scheme around the player that you draft, not try to force a player into your scheme. If you're wondering, Mitch, why should I subscribe to the Raiders Report? It's this. I show up every single day here, and I'm going to give you my all. I went live for 26 straight hours when the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. If you're looking for commitment to excellence, I am your guy. You're not going to agree with every take that I give. You're going to get mad at me probably with me hooting and hollering some of the ways that I do. You're probably going to get mad with me doing a few beer bongs. But you know what? Whether you agree or disagree with my takes, I believe when you wake up every single day, that is a gift to God, and that you got to give your 100% every single day. I'm going to do that, and I do that because that's what Raider Nation does. If you feel that, if you rock with that, hit that subscribe button. Let's go to number 5 here on the list of Raiders head coach candidates for 2025, and some of you might like this name. Some of you might not like this name. The first one is this. Bill Belichick, former head coach of the New England Patriots, and I'm basing this on what I think the Raiders would do / what I would do if I was the Las Vegas Raiders. If you want to figure out a way to get maybe a little bit more continuity together, Belichick could be a guy to keep in mind. The only other reason why I'm bringing up Bill is because his relationship with Tom Brady might not be the best off the field, but I do know that they have a great working relationship. And Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, when they were together, created the greatest football dynasty of all time. I know that Brady's not going to be able to play, but it also has been very well documented that Brady's going to have a big say of who that quarterback is going to be. So if Brady gets to pick the quarterback, and that quarterback gets to work in a very similar system with Belichick, who won 6 Super Bowls from 2000 to 2023, I know the risks. Belichick without Brady has not been a very good head coach. But I also think that the Raiders right now got to be able to get some solid foundation and get a head coach that everybody respects. Bill, when he walks into that room, will draw a lot of eyes to him. He will get that respect. He is number 5 on this list for a reason, and it's not somebody that I personally would hire, but I do think it's going to be somebody that gets brought up, which is why I'm putting him on the show. If the Raiders do decide to hire Bill Belichick, I guarantee you the quarterback that they're going to go with, and quite frankly, I think the quarterback that pairs best with Belichick, it's not Cam Ward, it is Shedeur Sanders. It is a quarterback that is accurate, and one of the reasons why I am growing higher and higher on Shedeur, I do think he's a little bit of a diva, but you know who's one head coach that I think kind of put Shedeur in his place? And even a head coach that even Dion would tell Shedeur, hey, you better listen to that guy. It's Bill Belichick. And Belichick, I think, would be able to kind of ring back Sanders a little bit. But when you see how accurate Shedeur is, he's a very different quarterback than Brady, but the accuracy is there. I think he just pairs best with Bill. Let's go to number 4 here on my list of Raiders head coach candidates for 2025. Bobby Slowik, currently the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. And I'll be real, he has started to fall lower and lower and lower on my board because I know that he's not done as well this season compared to what he did last season as the quarterback coach, but I know that the Texans OC from 2023 to the present year, so he's got 2 years of OC experience. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. That's why he's on this list. I want young, innovative coaches that show me that they are willing to change and they are willing to go with the ways that the NFL is going right now. I say that Slowik has done a great job with C.J. Stroud, and he has shown that he shows a lot of confidence in Stroud. The offensive line right now for the Texans is a little bit banged up. They also haven't been doing that great of a job. The running game isn't as good as what you see from typical Shanahan type of schemes, but Slowik, C.J. Stroud, if we can get a top quarterback to be able to go out and pair with Bobby Slowik, that's what we look at. I'll admit, I think that this one could be a coin flip between Cam Ward and Shedeur, but I'm going to trust our Texans guy here, Jeremy Chugs, and he said that he thought Shedeur was the better pairing with Slowik based on the accuracy, based on the intelligence, and based on just the overall skill set that he has. Shedeur is a big, bright quarterback that's going to get a lot of attention here, and a lot of doubters are going to come towards Shedeur's way as well. You know who also had a lot of doubters? C.J. Stroud, because they judged the helmet and not the player. So for that reason, I'm going to trust Chugs. I'm going to trust my gut. And I'm going to say if you go out and get Bobby Slowik, you should pair him with Shedeur Sanders. I got 3 more head coach candidates, and I'll be real. The next 3 coaches that I give you are the 3 coaches that I would want the Raiders to pick from. I wanted to give you a top 5 to just throw out a few other names there. I got some honorable mentions coming up, but if I was in the room with Mark Davis, I would go, the next 3 coaches that I'm going to bring up are the top 3 that you need to put your energy and focus on for 2025. If you need to put your energy and focus into a game, I hope that you end up trusting our sponsor here at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS. I love being able to go watch football games, but let's be honest, going to watch football games right now is a little bit difficult, and I can remember my very first game in Oakland. That was the FAB game, and the atmosphere there was one of the biggest reasons why I am a Raiders fan. There is nothing like an Oakland tailgate. There was nothing like that Oakland vibe, and I know that we don't currently have that home field advantage right now at Allegiant Stadium, but I do know that you're going to be able to get a great deal when you use Game Time. If you do use Game Time, check out the Game Time picks, because it makes it easier for you to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and a whole lot more. Game Time ticket coverage also, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Also, you're going to get that lowest price guaranteed. The tip that we always tell people, if you download the Game Time app, CHATSPORTS is the code. If you go to Las Vegas and you want to go to the tailgate, I'm not kidding you, like this is what I would do if I didn't do watch parties. I'd go to the tailgate, I'd go in the Game Time app, and I would wait 2 hours before, 1 hour before, 30 minutes before the game, go on Game Time, watch how much the ticket prices drop. Why? Because they know if you go to the game, you sit down, you're going to get food, you're going to get some drinks, you're going to spend some money there, and they know instead of taking a zero on that ticket, they're going to give it to you for a cheaper price, and then you're going to be able to go, and they're going to make money, you're going to have a great experience, and you're going to not hate when you leave. If the Raiders probably lose, you're going to still go, I had a great time. I got a lot of awesome memories from that, and I didn't break the bank. That's why Game Time is the perfect app for anybody that's planning on going out to Las Vegas. So, one more time here, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that link is available to the entire nation and to everybody that watches this video, down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. Let's go to number 3 here on my list of Raiders head coach candidates for next season. Zac Robinson, the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. I am not surprised that Atlanta's offense is clicking as well as it is clicking right now, and that you got a guy like Kirk Cousins who's making everybody around him just look a lot better. He's a first-year OC with Atlanta, and he's going to be a hot commodity next year. For a lot of people that watched my shows in last offseason, no, Zac Robinson was in my top 3 of offensive coordinators I wanted the Raiders to hire. Luke Getty was near the bottom. He comes from the Sean McVay tree, and he worked as a pass game specialist and offensive specialist for the Rams from 2019 to 2023. This is another young and up-and-coming coach that you can see is clearly outsmarting a lot of the coaches where are on the exact same wavelength as him in terms of years of experience. I love what he's done with the quarterback position, and it's not really all that surprising of when they went out and traded for Matthew Stafford and how good Stafford looked in his first year or two with the Rams. You know why? Zac Robinson was working with them side by side. When you see how good Kirk Cousins looks this season, when you see how a guy like Drake London taking his game to the next level, a guy like Kyle Pitts, it's almost like Atlanta has unlocked Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. They have a lot of talent on offense. They also had a lot of talent on offense last season and couldn't do a lot with it. Zac Robinson has totally opened up this playbook, but what he's great at is taking the players that they have, building around those players, and doing just what makes the most sense. So for that reason, if the Raiders go out and they get Zac Robinson as a head coach, the QB that I think pairs best with him is Cam Ward. And the reason why that I'm going to say it's Cam Ward is because I think Cam Ward's the best quarterback prospect in this year's draft. And because I trust Zac Robinson so much at the quarterback position, and I trust the Sean McVay tree so much, I say go get the best freaking guy. And the best freaking guy is Cam Ward. Before I get into my top 2 coaches, I do want to throw out some honorable mentions there. So the coaches that are on the left are the honorable mentions. The quarterbacks that you see on the right are the QBs that I think pair best with that guy. So for Klint Kubiak, his type of West Coast system, I'd go with Shedeur Sanders, Ryan Grubb, Joe Brady, Brian Flores. I would go with Cam Ward because, again, I think that they're just the best available quarterback. Plus, I actually love Ryan Grubb's system with a guy like Cam. And then Todd Monken. Maybe it's a little bit of a hot take, but I think if you put Monken and you use guy like Jalen Milroe the same way that you use somebody like a Lamar Jackson, I think that would be the highest upside. Now, if you have the number 1 pick, I still want the Raiders to take Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I think if you ended up getting Todd Monken, then you end up probably keeping a coach like AP because you were unable to go out and get maybe one of these great coordinators, but Monken also is not leaving his current position to come here and be an OC. If you haven't already, click that like button. Make sure you do so because good head coaches build around the talent they have on their roster. And I really, really, truly believe that. Maybe me saying, hey, this quarterback pairs best with this head coach is going a little bit above and beyond, and I don't totally disagree with that. But if you believe in the idea that good head coaches build around the talent that they have, hit that like button because that's what I need a head coach to do. I need a head coach that understands that and is able to execute that. Let's go to number 2 here of Raiders head coach candidates. If you don't want to go get an offensive-minded guy, and I think a lot of people know who number 1 is. If you can't go get number 1, and if Zac Robinson's like, I don't really know if I want to get this job, I think the number 2 candidate is going to end up being Mike Vrabel. I personally would want Robinson more than Vrabel. I have Vrabel ranked higher because I think the Raiders would be more interested in Vrabel than they would be Zac Robinson. He is currently coaching and as a personnel consultant for the Cleveland Browns, but he was the Titans head coach from 2018 to 2023. And quite frankly, I think he's a top head coach candidate where there's not 32 coaches better than Mike Vrabel right now in the NFL. I think he's one of the most well-respected coaches in the league. And if you want an easy transition from AP, a coach that always his teams fought hard, a coach that always got the best out of his players, that's what Vrabel did. Yes, he's a defensive-minded guy, and I would love to see his pairing with Patrick Graham, but defensive-minded head coaches with also a lot of ties to Tom Brady. The reason why that I would go with Cam Ward here if I'm going with Mike Vrabel is because Vrabel's mindset, he's a lot more of a, he's going to bring the juice, going to bring a lot of energy, and I think a guy like Vrabel and Shedeur honestly could butt heads a little bit, but when you have a quarterback like Cam Ward who's so laid back and go with the flow, that's why I would pair up Cam Ward with Mike Vrabel. But number 1, if you don't know who number 1 is, you haven't watched this show for basically 2.5 freaking years, man. It's Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Ben Johnson will be the number 1 head coach candidate for every single NFL team out there. And I think if the Raiders have the number 1 pick, quite frankly, I think the only way that the Raiders have any shot at getting Mr. Johnson here is if they do have the number 1 overall pick. The only other team that scares the hell out of me at being able to attract Johnson is the Dallas Cowboys, because I don't know if they're going to keep Mike McCarthy. But this is a guy who's been the OC for Detroit from 2022 to present, and I really think has been able to revitalize Jared Goff's career. Has Goff done a good job since coming to Detroit? Absolutely he has. But I also think it shows you where when you have a good OC and your head coach is a guy like Dan Campbell that's not an X's and O's guy, you need somebody like Johnson that's fun, creative, and he's one of the smartest young coaches. He's one of the most creative guys in the biz right now. And I'm telling you this, if the Raiders head coach was Ben Johnson, and if you went out and got a Cam Ward, they're making the playoffs in year 1. If you want to try to recreate what you're seeing in Washington right now with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels, go get Ben Johnson and Cam Ward. Or I think Ben Johnson would be able to crush it with Shedeur Sanders. Hell, I think Johnson would be able to crush it with any quarterback possible because he is that good of an offensive-minded guy. And if you go out and you get somebody like this, you let him build his staff from top to bottom. I don't know if the Raiders would end up keeping Patrick Graham because they would probably give Ben Johnson the keys to the car. And it's also going to cost Mark Davis way more than what it cost, a guy like Gruden. It was reported last season that Johnson was looking for north of $15 million. If the Raiders wanted to get Johnson next season, I think it's going to be close to $20 million per year, and he's going to be up there with the highest paid coach in the NFL, somewhere around Sean McVay right now, somewhere around a guy like Sean Payton. But if you want the best, sometimes you got to go out and pay the best, Mark. And if you're going to charge the ticket prices that you're charging, and after the years that we've had here, if you want to try to save Raiders football in Las Vegas and actually get people to go watch, sometimes you got to break the bank and go get yourself a head coach. So here we go. The Raiders head coach candidates in 2025. This is a list blended of coaches that I want / coaches that I think that the Raiders would try to pursue. As the year goes on, I will make more videos of the coaches that I think are the most likely to happen. The coaches that I want. The coaches that I think the Raiders want. We're going to make this video more than once because, unfortunately, Antonio Pierce is in over his head, and I do not think that he's going to be back in 2025. If he is back in 2025, well, then we're going to be making a lot more offensive coordinator type of videos because I don't trust AP. I don't trust Telesco. I don't trust this current regime to build a solid offensive structure based off of everything I've seen this season.